What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to Unleashed here. Hopefully, the lisp is gone. I will find out very soon with a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I think we're good. Wow. I mean, this is what you're looking for as a Giants fan, aren't you? This is what you're looking for. Now, before I want to start with an exercise in whether it's math or randomness or perception. I want to start with this, right? First of all, I love John Harbaugh. He's a terrific coach, but I do think certain things have been a little bit hijacked here for a couple of different reasons, which I'll detail in a moment. First of all, Coach X. All right, let's start with the variable. Coach X. So Coach X is 63 years old. He's coached for 18 years. He's got a 61% winning percentage. He's got a Super Bowl. And the last 4 years he's coached, he's gone 10, 13, 12, and 8. Okay? That's what Coach X has done. Coach Y is a year younger. He's 62 years old. 18 years, 61% winning percentage, same in the regular season, one Super Bowl, the same. And the last 4 years, 12, 12, 12, and 7 wins, okay? Coach X has also had the luxury of coaching a two-time most valuable player in Lamar Jackson. Coach Y has not. So in case you haven't been able to deduce who's X and who's Y, let me tell you, Coach X is obviously John Harbaugh, and Coach Y is Coach Mike McCarthy. Now, I'm not going to get up here and say that I think that Mike McCarthy is better than Harbaugh, but I think that there's a conversation to be had. I just gave you literally basically encompassing 2 full decades worth of coaching. They've each won a Super Bowl. They've each won 61% of their regular season games. And the last 4 years, they petered out that final year, which is why they were let go. Harbaugh won 8 times this year, and McCarthy 2 years ago won 7 with Dallas. But it was big double-digit win totals, 10, 13, 12 for Harbaugh, and then 12, 12, 12. And that's for obviously for McCarthy. But the way that you hear this being positioned, like you would think that the New York Knicks are bringing in Pat Riley like it's 1991, 92. I really like John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh is terrific. John Harbaugh is an immediate massive upgrade. The press conference, home run, gravitas, no doubt. Giant fans feeling good, emboldened, season tickets, the merch is flying off the racks. He's got his quarterback. I think if John Harbaugh is the head coach of the Giants, and I think there's a better chance that he will be than he won't be, I think it's fantastic. I think the Giants are in great hands for a while, and we'll see where it goes. But I also think that is a very delicate needle to thread, guys, because think about this. There's a couple of things here where if the Giants aren't perfect, and as much as the organization, as much as they've been in shambles for a while now, I do think the Giants will handle this well. Now, Stefanski was in last night. They had dinner. Today's the full meeting. So there are a couple of wild cards here that's going to make the Giants' job just a little bit more difficult to really properly navigate that. Now, I don't know what's going to happen, but what happens if the Bills lay an egg against the Jaguars? What happens there? What happens if Philly gets rolled by San Francisco? Remember, John was a coordinator there for 9 or 10 years. What happens if the Steelers lose a home game to the Houston Texans on Monday night? Depending upon the optics of some of those losses, particularly the Bills, like if the Bills were to get stomped out by the Jaguars, you'd have to think that they would at least have the conversation, because I think they've had previous conversations about whether or not McDermott's kind of hit the end of the road there. I've got a lot of buddies who are Bills fans, and they're tired of him. They don't think he's a next-level guy. And when you've got Josh Allen in contract number 2, firmly in his prime, like you've got to find the guy to get you there. So I don't know what they'd be thinking up there in Buffalo. And then you also have to factor this. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. So whether it's a Miami, whether it's a Tampa, whether it's a Dallas, maybe a lesser extent, whether it's Cincinnati, if one of those coaches is fired now, even though Black Monday has come and gone and they are still employed as of now, well, now that John Harbaugh was fired, that could obviously change some plans here. I don't know. Does he like the appeal and the weather of Miami? Does he want to go coach Joe Burrow, who I think is better than Lamar? Does he want to go to Dallas and all that comes with the Dallas branding and the monstrosity of what that emblem represents? Does he think the Buccaneers have a better roster? I don't know the answer to these questions, but so this is just, I mean, why couldn't my Jets be in the middle of this? But I'm not going to waste your time on that. Why? I do have a little something on the Jets after, but how nice would it be like if the Jets were in the middle of this year where, they moved on from Glenn. And by the way, I said that they shouldn't fire Glenn, But I also said that there could be circumstances which would maybe present itself where I would say, okay, I'm going to take that back. I'm going to fire Aaron, and this would be one of them. They're not going to do that. But as they're right now, in all probability, going through schemes and going through philosophy and talking with Kevin Stefanski about what his vision would be for the New York Giants, well, you've got within the first 45 minutes of the news breaking that John Harbaugh was fired, 7 teams reached out to his agent. And I don't think that that's hyperbole. Like, I don't think that that's Scott Boras, doing a little song and dance nursery rhyme trying to hype up his guy. I don't think that you need to hype up John Harbaugh because I think that John Harbaugh is terrific. But I also think that there are other men that are available that are comparable. Like I had to jump in the car for a little bit today and jump on the radio, just kind of see what's going around. Like you would think that Bill Parcells, when he came to save even though the Jets didn't win the championship, but after the 1-win season back in 1996 and preceding that was a 3-win season with Kotite, and then Parcells came to the Jets and they went 9-7, then they went 12-8, lost the AFC Championship game to Denver. Like you would think that Parcells, if it is Harbaugh, is rolling into that building. And I got to tell you, just to strip the emotion away from it, because I've already said that I think that John would be an amazing upgrade and, a B+, maybe even an A- kind of a coach here. But, you can. I choose not to ignore the fact that he's coached for almost 2 decades and he's got 1 championship. And there were a lot of moments where his team came up small, including the other night. So I just think that it's been a little hijacked, a little improperly positioned. Like John Harbaugh is a terrific football coach. And if you have a vacancy or you think you might have a vacancy, if that should arise based on what could happen this weekend with some of the teams and some of the situations I just mentioned. Well, I mean, John Harbaugh is as reliable and as safe and as I would think the fans would be galvanized. I think it's on so many levels, it's terrific. I think everybody would be juiced up over it. But I am having a rough time, and I am looking at this completely objectively, not an ounce of subjectivity. I don't have a dog in the fight. It's not my team. It's just honest. And even with my teams, I'd like to think when it's time to really cut the nut and be objective that I could do that as well as anybody. But where in the world is the differentiating factor between John Harbaugh and Mike McCarthy? Can somebody please explain that to me? I have yet to hear one logical point where John Harbaugh is definitively better than Mike McCarthy. I've not heard that yet. But all I heard, because I was saying this when I was still on the Fan, hey, McCarthy, I like McCarthy. I've always liked McCarthy. If the Giants, this was before they fired Dable. If the Giants move on from Dable, you might want to call McCarthy. Guy's pretty good. And they literally have the same exact winning percentage in the regular season. They've literally coached the same amount of years. They literally have the same amount of Super Bowl wins. And oh yeah, by the way, the one guy who everybody's positioning is like, the next coming of the football Christ here is like he's without flaw. I'm sorry. The one thing that I choose to incorporate into my evaluation and my analysis of this entire thing, like you don't get points to me for winning a lot of regular season games and then consistently coming up short when it matters when you've got a multi-time MVP. That is actually a strike against you. That should be a knock against you. But the amount of people who are failing to incorporate this, either they don't believe it. And by the way, that's fine. I'm not saying that what I'm saying is right for everybody. Clearly, based on the reaction so far today, what I'm saying is kind of counter to what everybody's saying. I just don't get it. And then you look at somebody like Kevin Stefanski, right? So we did Coach X, we did Coach Y. Let me hit you with Coach Z now, who is 46 years old and a lot younger than the other 2 men, because one is 62 and one is 63. He is a 2-time Coach of the Year, and twice he won 11 games with the most dysfunctional franchise this side of the Jets. And that would be Kevin Stefanski with the Browns, with their awful, just disjointed circus of a front office. So to me, like, if I'm looking at upside here, all right, Giants have the quarterback, all right? Giants still have that. I know it's eroded a bit. We've talked about this, but the Giants still have a cachet that is going to elevate them. And I've been telling you this for a while, where I think the Giants' job is front and center. Don't tell me about Arizona. I don't want to hear about some of these other situations with busted cap spaces or no quarterbacks or, hey, they've got the first pick like the Raiders, but you don't really know, even though I love Mendoza and some of you like Dante Moore, you don't really know if they're going to look like Jackson Dart looked as a rookie without Neighbors, without Scatterboo, without a defense. Like, you just don't know that. So there is a known variable here with the Giants that I knew was always going to make them very appealing. I don't know why some people looked at the Giants' job as less than, because I was separating what they become, and I was going more macro and giving them the benefit of the doubt of who they've been for most of my existence as a human being. But if you are 46 and you've had two amazing seasons and you've done it with one of the worst franchises in all of sports, okay, and you're thought to be 2 or 3 rungs below, or maybe 2, maybe not 3, 2 rungs below Harbaugh and maybe 2.5 behind McCarthy, well, I could very easily make the case that you should be elevated past that. All right, I know they've got the Super Bowl, understood, but you didn't get a Super Bowl with Lamar Jackson. You didn't win enough playoff games with Lamar Jackson. And obviously, even with McCarthy, who I really like, but is far from perfect, like, you could make the case that projecting and the upside and a more stable franchise and all the things that the Giants used to be, that I believe that they could get back to being, which I don't believe the Browns ever could, I could very easily present to you, as I am, that I think Stefanski is very much on the same line here as these other two gentlemen. Like, if we're doing seeds, right, for the NCAA tournament, you want to tell him, like, is John Harbaugh, is he a vintage Duke team? Is he a vintage Carolina team? Is he a vintage UConn team, whether it's Hurley now or Coach Calhoun back in the day with 3 championships? Is he a vintage Wooden team with UCLA? And the answer, or Georgetown with Ewing, or even St. John's with Mullen? The answer is no. Like, he's a really good 2 seed. He might be among the higher rated 2 seeds. He might even be like the 4th 1 seed. But like, let's not get this twisted where John Harbaugh is some coaching savior. There's a lot of disappointments there under his watch. Now, one thing, thank God the audio's good. Thank God. As soon as I started, I said, hey, listen, honey, within 30 seconds, give me thumbs up, give me thumbs down. And thank God I figured. Yeah, by the way, I got to take the L for yesterday. Yesterday was my fault. What I did was, not that you really care. So this microphone, again, a whole new world, right? This microphone, I've got it plugged into my laptop. I'm going through StreamYard. I'm getting it back on YouTube as soon as that's resolved, and hopefully that's done today. I can't control it. Trust me, if I could, we'd be on. I promise. So it's all connected through the computer, obviously. And I guess that in my haste, getting ready for the show and clicking on the light over here and getting everything ready, I forgot to go to the settings yesterday on my laptop, which would have enabled me to go from, laptop microphone to real microphone. Hence, I sounded like a lisp, or I sounded like one of those old movies where the audio was not synced up with the lips. So thank God we got that resolved, because if I had to deal with that today with a topic like this, I don't know. I mean, what am I going to do? Really, I really have much of a choice, but it would have absolutely driven me nuts. So we're good to go. By the way, I don't want to say this because I don't know for sure, but I really do think we're inside about the 10-yard line here on the YouTube stuff. We got to get this back up. Like, the messages and the flow and the ability to do all the things we were doing for the first couple of shows on YouTube. It's really disappointing that it's happened. But again, control what you can control. All I can do is content right now. The bells, the whistles, if you're new to this, the background, the producer, the calls, the guest. It's all coming. It's all right now. All that matters is that you are listening to somebody that hopefully you enjoy listening to or watching, and you believe that I know what I'm talking about. Even if you disagree with these assertions about the coach, that's all that matters. All the other stuff, making it look fancy, whatever. We'll get there, I promise. So I think that now you might not like this. I think that part of the differentiating factor between, forget about Stefanski for a moment. I like him. I don't love him, but I like him. He's very appealing and very intriguing to me with a lot of upside, right? A lot of different quarterbacks in Cleveland, awful ownership, as we've talked about. 2 awesome years, 11 wins. That's the Browns. I mean, let's not minimize that, okay? So, but I do think, because let's face it, a lot of you, and I guess to an extent myself as well, we are a little vain with certain things. Now, I don't give a rat's ass what my football coach looks like. I don't care if he's 500 pounds wearing a hoodie. I don't care if he's decked out like Tom Landry, even though the NFL doesn't let you do that anymore, like a bunch of idiots. It's a great look. I don't care what you look like. Can you coach? All right. Can you take a downtrodden team and elevate? And then once that elevation occurs, can you take a middle of the pack team and get them to a consistent playoff performer? And once you do that, can you crack through and win a championship or two? Like, that's the floating scale for me and for most people when it comes to evaluating coaches. But I do think that some of you, I don't even know, maybe it's the Dallas thing because he coached there. I think some of you look, because I've heard some of my buddies say it. I'm like, wow. I think some of you look at McCarthy like, I don't know, he just doesn't look the part. So let me get this straight. So John Harbaugh is, in the eyes of many, a discernibly better head coach when there's nothing there that backs up that statement. Not one single solitary statistic. Not a fact. You can lace it with opinion, which, by the way, I do with a lot of things. This medium is fueled largely by opinions. But when you're talking about something like this, you got to have your facts lined up. And I feel like there's so many people who are glossing over the facts, whether it's positive for Mike or kind of glossing over and maybe minimizing some of the recent deficiencies for Harbaugh. Now, one thing that I'm not worried about here, because every relationship has an expiration. I don't care if you're a great coach with great principles and great discipline and great schematics and the ability to build out a great staff, and you're phenomenal with the media. You can be an A+ across the board, the guy, no matter what, right? And then what happens after a while? The way you deliver the message, it gets a little, all right. And instead of everybody sitting there in the meeting like this, ready, maybe doing a little skull, ripping a little spit, but so locked in, taking the notes. Yep. We got it. Believing the messaging, following the messaging. Slowly but surely, you start to get a little bit of this. Then the eyes start to wander a little bit. And then during a bad season, you maybe start getting some of this. And then maybe it really falls apart, and maybe you get some of this, which is obviously untenable. And I don't know if guys were leaning back in their chairs, falling asleep in the meetings in Baltimore, but I do know, just based on the reports, that, it ran its course, that there was friction, whether it was Lamar with the coach, other veterans with the coach. That's fine. By the way, that's not a deterrent to me. That is called the reality of an 18-year relationship. Whether you're married for 18 years, whether you're working somewhere for 18 years, whether you're managing a group of people for 18 years, there's just going to be, like when the familiarity becomes, when you know what the other person's going to say, all right, and you know how the other person's going to react, and things aren't going incredibly well, now it's like, all right, man, I don't want to hear this anymore. Like, we're not winning, seasons, we're going nowhere. And I'm kind of checking out a little bit. And as even if you don't visually check out like this, maybe you're a little less engaged in your playbook. Maybe you're a little less, wired into the day-to-day occurrences that just have to happen to get yourself ready to play football at a very high level. And when you have 53 guys doing that and you have talent like the Ravens do, you're not going to miss the playoffs like the Ravens should not have. They should be a playoff team. So John Harbaugh underachieved this year, period. And that's okay, because everybody has those years, Even I just mentioned the great Bill Parcells. So when Parcells came here and the Jets were a train wreck and he elevated them immediately, again, imagine, you think that Harbaugh has a turnaround with the Giants, who were in basically every game and could have easily won 7 or 8 games, maybe even 9. I mean, if you really think about it. But the Parcells, the infusion of Parcells into the Jets. So the one win, we all know that, 1-15, Kotite gone. And then the first game of his first year, they won, I think it was 43-6 in Seattle. I remember watching that game. I'm like, what? Wow. Not only did they win, they destroyed them. So, like, that presence and that aura and that buttoned-up training camp, there could be immediate results. But even with Parcells, and they went 9 wins that first year, and then 12-4. But then the next year was when Vinny got hurt, when Vinny ruptured his Achilles. And even the great Bill Parcells, and if I've got one football game to win, I've always said this, and the talent's comparable, and there's no real advantages, it's basically a push. Bill Parcells is the guy that I want coaching my team. That's how great I think Bill is. I think he's better than Belichick. He doesn't have more wins, doesn't have more championships. Landry, Chuck Noll, any other great NFL luminary name that you want to throw out, I'll take Parcells and I'll take my chances. But even the great Bill Parcells had a massive miscalculation in 99 when Vinny got hurt because he kept running Rick Mirer out there. And Rick Mirer was doing nothing. Remember, early draft pick, second or third, I think, overall out of Notre Dame. And then the Jets picked him up, whatever. And our boy, I love him. I've known him for a long time. I haven't seen him in a while, but I love him. Used to see him a lot. Ray Lucas is on the bench. And, I guess Bill didn't think he could handle the quarterback spot. Kept rolling Rick out there. Mirer, loss. And then he finally inserts Ray Lucas. And guess what happens? The Jets win and they finished 8-8. So that was a massive miscalculation that if it was made earlier, Jets probably would have been a wild card team. Not that it would have changed the trajectory of the Jets franchise. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is every great coach messes up. So I'm not trying to be unnecessarily critical or overly critical or unfair to John Harbaugh. I am just literally pointing out some of the numbers, and it is astounding to me. It's not surprising. It's 5 levels past that. It's astounding to me that the narrative within the Giant fan base right now, I don't want McCarthy, I want Harbaugh. What's the difference? Can somebody point that out? What is the difference? What is the difference? He's not younger like Stefanski, right? It's not like one of them was with an awful franchise like Stefanski, and you believe with a more stable franchise, there'll be an immediate uptick in elevation, meaning their ceiling could be higher than a Harbaugh or McCarthy. That's not it, because let's face it, even though Jerry Jones is whacked out of his mind, I love Jerry, but he's whacked out, and Dallas is going nowhere. I mean, they're not the Jets. They're not the Cardinals. We know that. You know what I mean? So they're not the Dolphins. I don't understand it. It's okay to be really, pro Harbaugh. I just don't get the anti-McCarthy stuff. And I do think back to what I said before. I think that part of it is the visual. Part of it. I mean, listen, I'm going to give you guys enough credit because I think most of you know the game, understand the game, love the game. It's your oxygen. Of course, we're fans and we get hijacked and we lose a little sensibility. That happens to everybody, right? But I think most Giant fans are incredibly well-versed in the game of football, not just the hot take or calling it a show or dropping a tweet. Giant fans are phenomenal. But the way this has been, to me, very improperly positioned is again, it's astounding to me. And I think part of it is the visual. When you see John Harbaugh, you see a square-jawed, in charge kind of guy. He just presents physically his pure physical attributes differently. And then you look at McCarthy and he looks a little sloppy and whatever. And that's fine. I mean, if you want the better looking coach, I don't care what the hell the coach looks like. But like, if you want the coach that you think looks better, then that's fine. And I don't even think that that's your primary source of, that's not driving you to that, obviously. But I think somewhere, and I can't prove it, but what I can prove is that a lot of the McCarthy slander is wrong, factually, and misguided. And some of the overhyped Harbaugh stuff is also statistically off and a little bit hijacked as well. I really do believe that. Again, the numbers are the numbers. I mean, it's not like one guy's coached 27 years and one guy's coached 13 years, and I'm sitting here trying to extrapolate these numbers and make sense of it. It's literally 18 years, 61% winning percentage, one Super Bowl. Same age. It's 63 and 62. Like, you cannot. I don't know maybe I'm a victim of hyperbole here for a moment. I've been known to do that on occasion when I get excited or mad, but you cannot tell me that there's not a chance, and I would have to think a pretty good chance, that there has never been such an even measurement for one of the marquee jobs in our city than we have right now. And I don't even really think McCarthy's that much in play for the Giants. I think obviously Stefanski's there, but when the Knicks have made their moves, it's not like the Knicks were looking at, all right, here's Coach X, here's Coach Y. They've done basically the same thing. Who do we hire? I mean, it's like, all right, let's take a flyer on Hornacek or, whomever, right? Fizdale, how's that for data? You know? Whereas this is just, it's like looking in the mirror, only when you look at the reflection, obviously, they physically look different. That's about it. But you listen to a lot of the energy today, and you would think that Pat Riley's coming to save Patrick Ewing's career. I mean, this is not like there are just certain coaches. Phil Jackson when he went to the Lakers, of course, not Phil when he came to when he came to the Knicks, not to coach, of course. Of course, the Knicks hire him to do something he's never done, and that didn't work out well, as we know. Phil going to the Lakers, Kobe and Shaq, or Pat Riley coming here, or even Pat Riley going to the Heat with that crew, right? This is not that. It doesn't mean that it can't equate to a championship. It could. But like this foregone conclusion, it's just it's a little too far down the road for me. Like, no other options. Gotta be John. He's the best. Not even close. Well, I just gave you numbers that completely contradicts that opinion. And if you want to fight math, if you want to refute that, be my guest. I mean, I'll debate anything. One thing I'm not arguing is numbers. I mean, you're either hitting 301 or you're not. Well, you're hitting with a lot of bad luck. What's your average, dude? What are you hitting? You know, because over the course of a full season, that's probably going to be fairly emblematic of the kind of season and the kind of at-bats that you had. So I think that this is incredibly interesting. I think it's awesome that the Giants are going to wind up either way with a really good coach. I really do believe that, but they got to make sure they don't mess this up. And the one thing I will say, I do think the Giants will be able to stabilize their organization, particularly if it's somebody like a Harbaugh or McCarthy or even a Stefanski, who I know that they like. I do think that they're going to much more closely resemble the Giants that we have all that respect and affection for than this dysfunction basically turning into the Jets. Like I think that those days are coming to an end. I do. Got the quarterback, and then now the other situation too. Like, you got Joe Shane here. Well, all right, and you know that I don't think Joe Shane should be back, but he is. So you're not going to fight City Hall because it's already happening. Now, what if John Harbaugh says I'm not working for Shane? Well, then they've got to make a decision, and at that point, I mean, who's been better at their job, Shane or Harbaugh? Well, obviously, you would acquiesce to Harbaugh. I don't know if they would. Maybe it's more along the lines of, hey, it's going to be I hate that word, but you could get it worked in contractually where it would favor Harbaugh. It's a collaborative effort, right? And then year one for Harbaugh and of course, Shane, year 4 or 5, whatever it is at that point. 4? Wait, 1, 2, 3. I guess 4. I don't even know. All those bad seasons at 4 or 5. Where if it doesn't go well, then Joe Shane's gone, and then it's written into the contract, Harbaugh or McCarthy or Stefanski or whomever. Now they've got their say in terms of who comes in as a general manager. I mean, I would think that would be very appealing to somebody like John and one of these higher level coaches. Listen, the money's going to be there. There's no doubt the Giants are cutting the check. How much you want, dude? 12 million a year, 13, 14. What's the number? Whoever they said, and no, Stefanski's not going to get that because he hasn't earned that. But if that's what Harbaugh wants and that's who the Giants want, then that's what he's going to get. Mr. Mara, Mr. Tisch, they'll cut the check. That'll be done. Business handled. But let me throw this at you, and I kind of touched on it, but let me give you a worst-case situation just for a moment. I don't think this will happen, but they've got to be very aware that it does not, all right? So worst case would be, now you've got to factor in the Miamis of the world, the Bucks of the world, the Dallases of the world, and Cincy. Got to factor those in. Put them to the side for a moment. And I just talked about McDermott. I like McDermott. Like, he's my kind of coach. They're always competitive. They're really good. Maybe he's not quite that top tier, and there's an expiration point on that when you've got a franchise quarterback. I understand that. So it's easy for me as a Jets fan or just a football observer to say, I mean, he'd be an asset for any team that's trying to get competitive and eventually beyond that. But when you're the Bills, their scope of criticism and expectation is very different than the bad teams. All right, the Raiders, the Jets, etc. The Browns, again, the Cardinals. So if the Bills don't win, and like if they lose a tight one and there's no egregious like missed calls or bad challenges or whatever it might be, I don't think they'd get rid of McDermott. But if they lose, and the Jaguars are not a team I would want to see right now. That's one of the last teams I'd want to see right now. By the way, I think the Jaguars win the game. I'll make the picks on Friday. I like the Jaguars to send the Bills home. But if they do, and it's sloppy, and it's like, I'll just throw something out for you. 31-17, and there's an egregious call where there's a bad challenge or just something's, or they're not ready to play, whatever it might be, and it reflects poorly on the coach, I think there's a good chance they get rid of McDermott. And at that point, you'd probably be very justified to say, yeah, excuse me, it's probably time to do that, right? It's probably time. And I think Bills fans would want that. Maybe some of the Bills players would lament the move, but I think that would be in play. I think it should be. And it very well might happen. And if that happens, you don't think John Harbaugh would rather go coach Josh Allen? I love Jackson Dart. Who would you rather coach the next 5 years right now? I'd rather coach Josh Allen, right? So the Bills are a wild card in this equation. I don't think that, I don't know why I think this. I can't really base it on anything. Maybe because I just think Philly, I don't know. Philly's just a little different. But if Philly plays poorly against San Francisco, the Sirianni train might stop moving, choo-choo, time to get off. And he coached there for 9 years back in the day. So, there's a familiarity. There's, I would imagine, a respect and a trust. And a lot of people in that building, maybe not a lot, but certainly some people of power that would be appealing to reunite from John's point of view. That's the Eagles situation, right? Now, these are all just possibilities, but I'm presenting it for a greater issue here. All right. Now, Steelers lose to home. If the Steelers lose a home game to Houston, and I actually like Houston in that game as well. I don't think the Steelers are that good at all. I think the Texans will win. Here I am saying I'll give you the picks on Friday. I'm basically giving you every pick. I'll give you the actual point spreads and that stuff. I'll do that stuff on Friday. But I do like the Texans to win. When they win, and if they win, well, if it doesn't look good, aesthetically, because there's been a lot of chirping around Mike Tomlin for a couple of years now, well, then Mike Tomlin might be fired. And then, not that he's going to take the Steelers job necessarily, although maybe to stick it to you never know. You never know. But I would probably say no to that, his end. But now what happens is Mike Tomlin enters the chat. And now the Giants would have to do their due diligence and talk to him. Otherwise, they're just missing the mark. Mike Tomlin's free. You talk to Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin wants the same amount of money John Harbaugh wants. Well, then he gets the same amount of money you'd be willing to give to John Harbaugh, period. I mean, you guys to debate that. I'm not. I think that they're right on the same plane. I do. They've got some flaws, but they're also, in totality, outstanding NFL, successful coaches, leaders of men, emotionally stable, you know what you're getting, winners. That's it, right? So those are situations there. And then again, the Miami, the Bucks, the Dallas, Cincy. So while there are 7 openings right now, the Raiders are number 7. The Ravens aren't going to fire Harbaugh and then bring Harbaugh back. So there's 6 situations that you've got to really look at, right? So one thing I got to get used to in the office, among several things here, a little bit of a different desk layout. Got papers everywhere, so I got to find them. Now, if you're Harbaugh, let's just roll through it. You want anything to do with Arizona? I mean, the answer is no. All right. It's an awful quarterback situation, and they've got $21 million in cap space. That's not good. All right. Now, what was it, buffering, guys? All right. Hold on. Are we good? All right. Refresh. There you go. I guess that was more on your end than my end. Okay. So I hope it was on your end, not my end. Because if you hit me with buffering in the comments, it's one thing to figure out the mic. I'd probably try to do something and refresh it, and I'd lose the stream. So I'm not touching anything. All right. The Raiders. All right. The Raiders, obviously, Carroll won it done, got the number 1 pick, got over $100 million in cap space. They've got 3-4 very high-level players, tight end, running back, 1 or 2 others. Would that be an appealing destination for John Harbaugh? It could be. I mean, Tom Brady, that alignment there. Now, the Browns, obviously, he's not going there. Stefanski gone. Ownership situation awful. They're $12 million over the cap. Why in the world would they do that, right? Why would he do that? He wouldn't. The Falcons, Morris out. Now, there's real concerns around Penix. Got hurt again. No first-round pick from the trade when they moved up. Now, you got Bijan Robinson. You got Drake London. You got Kyle Pitts. You got a good old line. You've got some stuff there. That would be maybe a little bit, to me, that's one of the top 3 jobs, the Falcons. Maybe more appealing to him. I don't know how he views going to the NFC or that division or living down south. I don't know. And then you get the Titans. Now, does he like Cam Ward? There's no way he can like Cam Ward more than Jackson Dart. But it's a great city. It's a great state. Tennessee's blossomed the last decade big time. And they've got a lot of money. I think they've got about $100 million in free agent funds here. And then there's nothing around them. All right. So in terms of Cam Ward, if you even like Cam Ward. So I don't think, maybe outside of the Raiders, maybe, and the Falcons, maybe, I don't think the Giants will have a lot of competition for Harbaugh for this cycle if nothing wacky happens over the weekend. If the Bills don't whack McDermott, if the Steelers don't fire Tomlin, Philly, we'll see what happens with Sirianni. There's just a lot of things that are still potentially doable. And you've got to remain, this is why I say you've got to really thread that needle and be almost perfect here. You've got to remain incredibly engaged with Stefanski. And then you've got to be very, and I'm sure they already are, because they already did their work back when they fired Dable about the possibility. And that's a good job by the Giants. That's something the Jets wouldn't do. Like the Jets wouldn't have that vision, that foresight. Luckily for the Giant fans, the Giants had that internal, they were on the same page, and they were able to at least devise a skeleton of a plan. Hey, what happens if Harbaugh shakes loose? And he has, and here we are. But let's say that you get a situation where you remain engaged with Stefanski, who's there right now, and I know they like him, and I'm sure he would like the Giants too. And you're obviously going to have a real serious conversation and meeting and all that stuff with Harbaugh. But while you're dancing with all these people, you have to make sure that you're not left without a chair. Now, if that would happen, I would say the percentages of that happening are incredibly low. I would say like inside of 5%. I would say almost zero, where we're sitting here in a month, coaching cycle done, roughly, hiring's done. Everybody who's been whacked has been whacked. All the top level coaches who were desired by many on the open market, they've already been signed. They're with their new teams. They had the press conferences. Can you imagine a situation where Harbaugh is with the Raiders, Tomlin either stays there or goes to the Falcons, and Stefanski's like, you know what? I thought they were serious and I liked them, but they kind of just gave me the Heisman a little bit while they were doing their due diligence, and some other franchise of the other openings that I just mentioned, not to mention some other openings that I also mentioned that could open. That made sense. Then Stefanski could say on a personal level, yeah, man, I revere the Giants brand and what they meant to the league, and I'd love to get my hands on Jackson Dart and work with him, and I got some good defenders, and I got some cap space, particularly after not this year, the next year they've got a ton of money. Still Dart's first contract. Sure, there's many appealing checkpoints there, but if you don't feel the love, or I think even more so, if you feel the love early, which I know Stefanski has been, and right now is in the process of still feeling, and then it shifts and it becomes a little stale as those wandering eyes, somebody walks in the bar, it's somebody new. Oh, who's that? Excuse me, I'll be right back. I have to go get a drink. And you kind of excuse yourself from the conversation that you're having, and you never go back because somebody more appealing to you walked in the bar. You know what I mean? And if that happens, well, the person who's left in the bar, even if you do meander back, maybe you don't close the deal, whatever happens, I'd be like, get lost. Not interested in you. So there's a lot of human emotions at play. I know that sounds almost like too deep. Human emotions. Come on. We're talking football. We're talking money. We're talking power. We're talking contracts. Yeah. But at this level, with most of these men, again, Stefanski a tick below Harbaugh for sure, and McCarthy, in my opinion, and Tomlin if he's free, there's still the human nature of it. And nobody wants to feel ignored. Nobody wants to feel disrespected, and nobody wants to feel marginalized. And the Giants really need to be careful with that. And I think that they will. That's the good news, but it's got to be perfect. We'll see. Oh, man, I can't wait till I can throw out a phone number there. So let me tell you one of the things about throwing out a phone number, right? So one thing I never did, it drives me nuts. It is such lazy radio. You start a show and you just throw out the phone number. What the hell are you throwing out the phone number for? You haven't given me any reason to call. And we all know the phone number, the popular numbers, right? We all know the phone numbers. Well, give me something to think about and give me something, compel me to react, and I'll call. So that was always a a lazy thing that bothered me that I always really, I'm sure I did it early in my career, but really, really tried to stay away from that. But the one thing, and this is a little trick of the trade, and I think anybody who does this for a living is able to do this because it's an important tool, especially if you're by yourself. Like, it's one thing if I got Sal there, right? And I've got to clear my throat. I've got to sneeze. I want to have a sip of water. I want to have a sip of coffee. I want to look at a note. It's more of a stream of unfiltered consciousness here. Like, there's really no time to wait, which is fine. I mean, I could talk all day, but it is nice once in a while to have that little slight interruption. And the funny thing is, when I get the phone number, which we've already bought and will enable us to take calls, we've already secured that, as I've told you. Then when you're, it's an amazing art. There's a little side turn. It's amazing art. Young broadcasters, you're going to want to learn how to do this, right? Where, all right, hey, Shane, Dable, this, that, you got Harbaugh, hey, Tom might get fired. Then you throw out the number, 888, whatever it might be, right? And as you're saying the number, because you're saying the number, you're not even, you don't have to say to yourself, what's the number? You know the number because it's ingrained in your broadcasting mind. As you're saying the number, you're actually simultaneously collecting your next thought. And I can't do that yet because I don't have a phone number to throw out. Maybe I'll just start throwing out random phone numbers. And maybe that'll be a fun bit. Maybe I'll just come up with a fake number now, throw it out there, and I'll program myself as I'm throwing out this number that won't connect to anything yet. I'll be able to, kind of move on to the next thought. Let me move on to this thought real quick. I want to read some of these messages. Again, I hate that we're not up on YouTube yet. I mean, or that it's not back up. The traction for YouTube has been phenomenal. And by the way, it's been really good on X as well. And I appreciate that. I appreciate the support. Thank you very much. At BT Unleashed YouTube. While we're not live there now, we were the first 5 or 6 shows. There's a lot of content. There's Met stuff. There's Yankee stuff, Hot Stove stuff, Knicks stuff. There's all stuff up there. My spot with Tina Cervasio, if you want to see that from Sunday night, a couple of Sundays ago. So a little something on coaching youth baseball, getting your kids ready for their first venture into Little League. That's some content that I'll definitely do a lot. Maybe not live, but I'll post that for you if you guys are into it, which many of you are. But the feedback has been awesome. And it's been so rewarding to just like jump into this. And I'll tell you something else too. As much as I get frustrated, and I admit, like with certain things, I'm a perfectionist. Like, nobody's perfect. It's just obviously, and I'm nowhere near it. But it's a mindset of trying to line things up perfectly. That's just what you do. If you care about something, you structure the show. You have, a very clear idea where you're going to go. Now, if something breaks and it's fresh, you pivot. You got to be able to do that. But the YouTube, the ability with the messages and all that stuff was going on was great. And I see messages here, and that's awesome. I'm going to get to some. But what I really appreciate, because I think it really resonates with you, which speaks to, I think, how you feel about me. And I don't mean that in a cocky, egotistical way at all. But as I said from day one, I feel a lot of you behind me. I feel it. I feel that surge of support. I feel that surge of belief, the conviction that what we're doing now, which is phase 1, and I'm going to look back on in 5 years and hopefully be not embarrassed by the content, unless, of course, Harbaugh comes to the Giants and wins 3 and McCarthy goes somewhere else and does nothing. I could be embarrassed by a take, but I'm going to look at some of the early shows and like, wow, I was doing the first show in my basement. My God, look, I didn't even have the banner yet behind me. The studio was so different. That's all good. But I do notice one of the themes, because I do read the comments and I do respond a lot. It's a very interactive aspect of YouTube, which is great, right? A lot of you have said, dude, and I appreciate this. Dude, don't worry about the audio. Don't worry about the look. Don't worry about this. Just keep doing what you like. I think it's very clear to you guys that this is a completely new platform and it's a completely new endeavor. And you know what? It doesn't have to be perfect early. It's got to be me. And I do feel like when we're doing the sports stuff, I may as well be in a radio studio right now. I feel right at home. So I did want to thank you guys for that because, I'm aware of it. And certain things happen. Like, you don't think I was embarrassed a little bit yesterday with that audio? I'm like, it sucks. Like, I had this whole show and I had some real things I couldn't wait to get into, and it's not her fault. She's trying to help me. I got my wife outside, thumbs up, thumbs down, opening the door, audio this. I see my head's going to explode here. All I'm trying to do is just keep the train moving, man, and transition into this. So when I see those comments, they are sincere, and I do really humbly accept that because it's not going to happen overnight, but it's going to happen. All right, because it already is. Jets. So, thought the press conference was a little interesting. At the end of the year press conference for the great historic franchise known as the New York Jets. So, I don't really care what Aaron Glenn says at this point. There's nothing that Aaron Glenn could say that's going to change my opinion of Aaron Glenn. I thought he was fine. I mean, he's not hitting a home run. He's not striking out with the bases loaded. Like, there's nothing that he could do where I would have been like, that's it. He's the guy. Or, you see, maybe people are right. He should have been fired. Nothing that would have been said from him yesterday would have altered my perspective at all. Jets are a train wreck of a franchise. They have had no consistency. Their roster was a D for half the season on. It was atrocious. Backups as starters, backups to the backups, or taxi squad guys forced into action. Like, one thing, and I definitely been known to overreact with certain things. I get it because I'm passionate. And when you're passionate, sometimes you get a little misguided with the energy that you project with a certain topic because you care. All right. But I'm actually very proud of myself in a very strange way that I didn't overreact like a lot of you guys did with the way the Jets were finishing out the season. What the hell do you expect? Oh, wow, they're losing 35-8 to the Bills. I'm surprised it's not 60-3. A little more competitive than I thought. Or the Patriots game. Oh, God, May just scored, 5 or 6 times in a row. What the hell's going on? Played against, he may as well be playing against Indiana in a bowl game. That's how bad the Jets defense was. So I didn't overreact to that at all. So now I'm going to push Aaron Glenn aside for a little bit here, because unless the Jets became incredibly bold and forward-thinking and proactive, and which is not going to happen, spoiler, they're going to keep him for next year, which I'm okay with because I want to see one more year, and not because he played for the Jets, because I do believe he's a leader of men, and I believe in those people with those qualities. I do. And if I'm proven wrong and they're terrible next year, which they might be, well, then we'll have a different discussion. Glenn's to the side. I thought the bigger takeaway was Muji, because Muji was telling us, and he's not wrong with all the assets that they have, and, 75, and they could even manipulate that further, restructure, whatever, all that fungible NFL money, which, does anybody really understand the cap? Really? Does anybody really, truly understand? And I mean, like, from a legal, literal point of view, because I'm raising my hand and I'm straight up telling you, I don't. The dead cap hits and this, that. You have teams that are $9 million under the cap, and suddenly they've got a surplus of funds by 9 things that they did, and now they're $37 million under the cap, which to me makes no sense at all. So I don't even waste my time trying to understand it. It is annoying. I do like when I see that my team's got $75 million worth of money. Anybody can interpret that as being good, so I'll take that as a win. But with that money, with all the draft capital, there's obviously a way for Muji to really hasten their acceleration. And I believe that he will, because of the 2 men on that podium at the press conference yesterday. The one man that I believe in the most is the GM, more so than the coach, because there were low-level moves. Now, nobody wants to get it. I'm not going to get it. Nobody cares about some of the lower-level moves that the Jets made, but it showed a willingness to be aggressive and proactive, and coming from Denver that had a similar mindset, and being around Sean Payton and having that modern approach to team building and roster construction. I really think the Jets actually got their general manager hire right. I am incredibly confident in saying that. Now we'll see. You could still have the right guy. Like, they may have had the right guy with Joe Douglas, but you got the wrong quarterback. So in turn, you don't have the right guy in terms of the final grade. I understand that that's very, very plausible. But one thing that he said, how, he kind of pushed it forward in a way that I appreciate, but that they're going to be pretty good, pretty fast. Now, that's good to hear, because nobody wants to sit there, especially when you're a fan of a team that never wins, and just get fed that nonsense every year. Well, it's going to take a while. We got to really do this and that. And Rome wasn't built in a day, and we got a lot of moves to make. And, we're nowhere near ready for prime time. We know that. So nobody really wants to hear that, because it's a regurgitation of what we've known our whole lives. All right. But what I do worry about a little bit, I want to hijack this and go nuts. But the tone that he struck yesterday, for the first time, I was a little fearful that for job security purposes, he might try to cut some corners and do some things to get the Jets competitive next year, which, by the way, might even work. You spend the money. Let's say they don't draft the quarterback here. Let's say they can't get Mendoza, don't love Moore. Okay. Well, you got to get a second receiver, preferably somebody who's big and a red zone target, 50-50 balls opposite Garrett Wilson. You got the O-line. Maybe you need one more. And if they get the one more right guy in the O-line, Jets have a top 5 O-line in football. I'm not here to debate that. They just do, period. So, and if you know that, you know. If you don't, I don't know what to tell you. Jets O-line is going to be awesome. And if they get that receiver, one more O-lineman, just functional quarterback play, and a safety and a line. And I know this is long. Anything else, buddy? What else you need there? But, a linebacker, a corner, and they could do this because they've got all the money and all the draft capital. Well, it's not ridiculous to think, even when you look at the schedule with some weak teams next year, the Jets could go 9-8. Okay, or I'm not even going to say beyond that, 9-8. How about this? Going into the final 2 or 3 weeks, there's still, the producers and the directors at CBS have the Chiron in the hunt, and they've got to actually put Jets up there for once in December, in the hunt. Late division leaders, wild cards in the hunt, even if they're the last team in the hunt, right? At least I do think that there's a chance that they could actually do that, which would be great, provided it doesn't come at the expense of sabotaging building a championship team. Like, I don't want them to bring in a ton of, B- players just to become competitive and win a couple of games. I want them to really target champion A players and get more of those. And if you do that and you're more selective in finding those players, and you're not going to hit on all of them, obviously, and then you supplement that with free agent money, well, that's different. Excuse me, that's very different. That's a way to build the team, and that's something that I would certainly subscribe to. That's what I want. But fear is not the right word. Worry is not the right word. When I heard that, I'm like, because he's not a dummy. And he heard the noise, so did Aaron. And that's why Aaron was saying, hey, thumb, chest, not here, not thumb, chest. The thumb went to Aaron. Now, it had to because he's the head coach and they were awful. But you don't think that Aaron Glenn knows? Like, if Aaron Glenn's sitting around with Muji or sitting around with one of his buddies that he played with at A&M or an old Jet or talking to Coach Parcells on the phone, which he does, and they're having a drink, they're having an honest conversation. You don't think that Aaron Glenn, in a moment that he knows that wouldn't be captured by anybody but a great confidant and a lifelong friend, you don't think he's going to say, man, we just got no players, dude. We all know that. We know that. So I think that it's impossible to grade him. Muji's easier to grade, and that's why I give you the more belief in Muji than Glenn right now. I just hope there's no shortcuts because as the noise got louder, and the vitriol, which is ever present, and the level of toxicity with the New York Jets and within the fan base, which, again, I get, and a lot of times I've been a part of, not all the time, and not now I'm not, so that there's evidence there, but obviously I've jumped in face first and been as loud as anybody over the years. And when that happens, Muji, who's not from here, but he hears it, and he feels it, and he knows it, all right? And who knows if Woody's being like, all right, hey, Mooj, come on, listen, I don't expect you to win the Super Bowl next year, but let's go. We got to get this thing going. This is embarrassing. Let's go, which is perfectly within bounds for an owner to say, by the way. But the way it's said, and if it's said a little differently, it could be messaging that Muji says, like, all right, man, that's the first sign. I better get my act together here. I better get my ass in gear and start getting some players. And, again, that's why I say maybe there's some shortcuts that could develop that I hope don't. And we'll see, but I wanted to at least give you that on the Jets. Let's see here. Samson, just joined. No YouTube again. Yep, not yet. It's in the process. There's a whole thing with their team that I can't control the pace in which they do that. But they are working on it. So there we go. I just wanted to give you that update there. Let's see here. Let's see. I want to get some. And by the way, if you guys have a question, here we go. If you can actually hashtag it with AskBT, it's a little bit easier for me to decipher what it like. I don't want to just be the guy, and trust me, I appreciate it, but great show. Like, I don't just want to read those. I don't feel the need to read those. I'd rather get something, and again, keep them coming if you actually think it's a great show or we're off to the right start here, BT Unleashed. But at least, kind of give me some stuff here that I can react to. And that's why YouTube's a little bit easier in that regard. So I'm kind of going here. This one from Maddie BNY63. What would the OC options be? Well, that's the question. Harbaugh had lesser quarterback talent when he won the title. True. When he had Lamar, he lost to Rivers, Mahomes, and Allen. I understand that. I don't know who would bring it in the OC as the OC. Let me let you in on this. This is very important. So, and I learned this from Tiki. I'm going to give Tiki some credit here. I learned this from Tiki Barber when we first started working together, really year one of the national show, which was a decade. And a lot of it was really around the Jets and the Giants, right? Like hiring a coach. Oh, just go out and get this coach. This is the coach to save the Jets. And he would always say, all right, I hear you, BT, but how's he going to build the staff? Who's he bringing in? And my response, like my reflexive response was, I don't care. I like this guy as a coach. Bring him in. He'll figure it out. Well, I've learned years ago that it's almost as important who you bring in as it is who the head coach is. So I'm not saying that John Harbaugh could not assemble the staff. I'm not saying that at all. But if you ask me, right, I think he could. But if you ask me, who do I think can hire the best staff? And I'll just go with McCarthy, I'll go with Harbaugh, and I'll go with Stefanski. I think Stefanski would be able to hire a really good staff. He's young. He's got some connections. So I don't think that would be an issue for Kevin Stefanski. I think that McCarthy, because two different organizations, he's been out of the game for a year. What smart people do, they kind of repackage themselves. And if you're a coach who gets fired and you take a year off, your mission is to make sure that when you're in the next coaching cycle, which he obviously is and will be for a lot of these teams, you have already assembled the vision of what you think your staff would be. You've already reached out to people. You've already gotten yeses, firm, no, maybe, hey, we'll see. But I promise you, McCarthy already has that, all right? Harbaugh does not because he just got fired. Now, that doesn't mean that Harbaugh can't assemble one. I think he'd have a better chance to do it than, say, Aaron Glenn coming in this year, obviously. Wilkes' hire was a train wreck. That was an F. It was awful. But I also think that because he's been with one franchise for so long, I'm not saying there's none, but I'm just having the conversation, making the point. What league-wide connections does John Harbaugh have access to that are viewed as assets that are also currently available? I don't know. Now, I could be wildly off base on this, not the premise of assembling a staff, but if you ask me, of the three names, who do I think has the chance to assemble the best staff? I would probably say McCarthy 1, Stefanski 2, and Harbaugh 3. Now, that might not matter to you because some of you, for some crazy reason, still think that Harbaugh is some, prodigy and miles better than McCarthy when all the data says they're the same exact guy. Same age, same year's coach, same winning percentage, one Super Bowl, whatever. And I don't want to reset it now. If you guys missed it, just go back and rewatch it. And by the way, this will be uploaded to the YouTube page. I can do that. I just can't go live on YouTube, which is frustrating. That's the issue. I can still upload stuff, which I uploaded yesterday's show, which was about the Knicks. So if you missed that, I've been supporting these Knicks here. I went in on them yesterday. There's some real issues with the Knicks. If you missed it, you could go BT Unleashed YouTube. It's there for you. But I think that part of the problem for Harbaugh is that he's been there for 20 years, 2 decades, basically. Now you're leaving a building and you're going to have to assemble an entire staff. You're going to get names. You're going to get people that are going to come want to work for you, that are going to want to surround themselves with a quarterback like Dart. And from a defensive guys like Burns. And I think that they might trade Thibodeau. I would trade Kevin Thibodeau, but I don't know what they'll do with that, but I would. But Burns and obviously Carter, who started to really flash as the year went on. You add a safety, you add a corner, you have Dexter, you have something better on the third level. Dexter's better because now there's guys who are covered, whatever. It all goes hand in hand. I do think there'd be a lot of people that would want to go and work for Harbaugh. The question is, have they done the job anywhere? I don't know the answer to that. I'm just saying it's going to be a little bit more of a challenge than you think. All right? Let's see. All right. McCarthy had Rodgers for 12 years. And Harbaugh had Flacco for 11. That's Robert Kelly. So that's basically what Robert's doing is Robert's saying, and I get this. All right, I'll address it again a little bit, but a little differently. So Robert's saying like, because I am on some level, well, first I'm just acknowledging the way their resumes are basically identical. Number one. Number two, I choose to penalize Harbaugh for never winning with Lamar and too often losing big games with Lamar, two-time MVP, who's still in his 20s. It's not like he's 36. You know, he's at the prime of his powers, is what I mean. And if there's ever a window to win, you'd have to think it was kind of the window that expired on John Harbaugh, which is why he's out of a job. So if I'm saying that about Harbaugh, why would I not say that about McCarthy, who had Aaron Rodgers for 12 years? No, that's fair. That's fair. I'm not saying that McCarthy, I'm not elevating him beyond Harbaugh. I'm just merely putting him on the same plane. Now, it all comes down to personal preference, a little discipline, interaction with the media, overall building philosophies, adaptability, whatever, how you impress in the interview. Like, there are variables that I think very well might separate John Harbaugh from Mike McCarthy. But just based on the track record and what they've already literally done, it's not accurate to say that John Harbaugh is a better coach than Mike McCarthy. That's all that was. But that's good. That's true. That's why Mike McCarthy doesn't have a job right now. Like if Mike McCarthy, even if Dallas would have whacked him after the 7, and by the way, McCarthy, first 3 years in Dallas, 12 wins, 7. All right. And all right, they're not the Browns, not the Jets, but the level of dysfunction, trading guys, the nonsense, the noise, the attention, kind of like the Yankees. Yankees win 94, Yankees get harpooned. Dallas wins 12 games, doesn't win the Super Bowl. Giants get harpooned. It's a different standard. So there's a lot of noise there. And that's one of the other reasons why I like McCarthy, because he's dealt with that. When you're the coach in Green Bay, I know it's a smaller market, but when you're the coach of the Packers and when Lombardi coached there and you've got that fabled venue and Favre was there and you've got Rodgers and it's championship or bust and those fans, that's their whole world. There's not 8 million people floating around the area, but the energy is palpable. I would actually say that the noise in Green Bay, I can't prove this, but the noise in Green Bay when something goes awry for the Packers is like more concentrated and more uniform than the noise when something goes awry for the Jets or the Giants. And I'm just going to take a stab and see if this theory is true. And if it is, that's another reason why I really like McCarthy. Now, first of all, you've got 2 football teams. So in Green Bay, everybody's a Packer fan, everyone. Here, I'll say, what do you think, guys? 60% Giant fans, 40% Jets? Maybe you want to tell me 65-35 in favor of the Giants. I don't know I know it's not 50-50, so I'm not going to be delusional. Of course, the Giants have more fans. But whatever they have, they've got around 35 to 40% of the people who would react to football not really reacting. Not that they don't have an opinion, but there's the passion and the pressing nature and the vitriol, calling, tweeting, texting, booing in the stadium. If you're a Jets fan and the Giants flush away a lead against Chicago, do you really care? No, you don't care. Now, maybe you called me and Sal and you make it a Jets point and maybe you reference something about the Giants, but that's not your main mission. Whereas I say that because I don't think that you could escape the noise in Green Bay at all. Everywhere you go, Packer fan, Packer fan, Packer fan, Packer fan, Packer fan. You could go here and, you could be on Fifth Avenue. You could be in certain pockets of our boroughs that, aren't dyed in the wool of American football fans. That's one of the great things about our area. It's an incredible melting pot. You get everything. And when you have everything, not everybody cares about the same thing. So I would actually, while there's fewer people, I do believe that the noise and the evaluation is harsher and the reaction is harsher there than here because there's a lot of distractions here, not to mention not everybody's a Giants fan or a Jets fan. So the fact that McCarthy dealt with that and then went to Dallas and dealt with the Jerry nonsense and that brand recognition, every game is a national game. It's Buck, it's Aikman. If it's on CBS, it's Troy. Pardon me. It's Romo and it's Nance. Sunday night, Monday night, Thursday night, like it's Dallas. All right. So I think he's fully equipped to deal with this. I'm not saying that John's not. I just think when I really look at this, and I was sitting at my son's basketball game last night and most of the dads are Giant fans, very few Jet fans, and we're in the stands, right? And I was actually I was trying to resolve the YouTube issue still. So I'm in the stands. They're warming up on the layup line, whatever. And one of my good friends in town, my son's best friend, his buddy's grandfather, great guy, great spot. Sit with him at a lot of games, love him. And he knew I was in the middle of something. He said, "Hey, not to interrupt." He said, "Did you see Harbaugh just got fired?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's one of the things I'm juggling." Yeah. And then I got to talking to him and a few others, and it was the consensus was got to get Harbaugh, must get John Harbaugh, must get him for the Giants, no other option. And all I'm saying is, yeah, there should be. That's all I'm saying. And if John Harbaugh is the coach, Giants will have made out fantastically. If Mike McCarthy is the coach or Mike Tomlin, I think the Giants will have had a massive, massive winning day. All right. Even Stefanski. I really like Stefanski. I do. You know, it really comes down to how you present this, right? And that's why, like, certain things you can manipulate, but you can't manipulate literal numbers, but you can provide a context within those numbers that could manipulate or at least maybe reshape the tone and the direction of the conversation. And what I mean by that is, again, when you're Stefanski, think about all the quarterbacks that he had in Cleveland, two-time coach of the year. Two, not one, two. He's 46 years old. These other guys are in their 60s, and they each have one Super Bowl and one coach of the year? So that's context where I believe that there could be an elevation, and I don't think it would be without merit. I don't think it would be without justification to at least keep Stefanski in the meat of this conversation. Like, it's not Harbaugh, McCarthy, and then Stefanski concession. All right, I guess, Harbaugh didn't want to come here or whatever. I don't know, whatever the situation might be. All right, let's roll out this guy. We got a C-plus coach. Stefanski's really good. And he's been really good a couple of times for one of the most trying, pathetic situations in all the sports. And I do think that you should be rewarded for that. And that should be incorporated rather than just, he's won 46% of his games. And, they were awful this year despite having a good defense. And he's not as good as Harbaugh. I don't necessarily believe that, because I promise you, what do you think Bill Belichick would have done with Lamar Jackson? Think he would have done a little more? I do. What do you think? Now maybe I was going to say, what do you think Tom Coughlin would have done with Lamar? Maybe that style would not have fit the way that Tom Coughlin wanted. Although Brunell ran around a little bit with Jacksonville, and he was very successful there. Not the two championships that he had with the G-Man with Eli, but successful for sure. A real winning coach out there, really good at Boston College. Great coach, Hall of Famer. Coughlin's great. But if, let's say, Coughlin was the same guy, all right, and he was coaching Lamar these last 7 or 8 years, whatever it is, and that guy won 2 MVPs, and I'm talking about a modern version of Coughlin, not the older version now, but still well-principled and disciplined and be on time and all that stuff that you knew Tom Coughlin made you do without compromise. But, modern in the sense that he grew up with the way the game's evolved at the quarterback position in terms of letting guys move and more of a free-flowing game. If he had those concepts, and smart people would adapt, so I believe Tom would, are you telling me that Tom Coughlin wouldn't have had more success with Lamar Jackson than John Harbaugh did? I think he would have. Parcells? Yeah, I do. I really do. I think that, Pete Carroll, like not with the Raiders, with no chance, but younger Pete with Seattle, I think Pete Carroll would have had more success. I think Mike Tomlin would have had more success, because you can make the case that they basically had comparable success here, certainly these last couple of years. And look at who he was rolling out as his quarterback. You had Fields, you had Russell Wilson, you had Mason Rudolph, whatever the hell his name, whatever his name is, he stinks. You know what I mean? So that's all the subtext within the big, big issue. There's a lot to it. I'm right for me. It doesn't mean that I'm right for you. It's the beauty of this. And I think either way, as this is the ultimate point, I'm going to get out of here. The best thing is that the Giants are going to walk away with a really good, qualified winning coach. And really, that's what matters here. So I appreciate you guys hopping in. See some questions now. If you guys want to just throw those questions on Twitter, maybe I could get to that a little bit more. See some stuff on Flores, some more on Stefanski, some more questions about the OC. More questions about YouTube. I already addressed that. Some stuff on Kingsbury. What do we got? We've gone, an hour and 10 minutes? Yeah, we're good. I got it out. I feel good about what we talked about. Hit me up on Twitter. Obviously, go to YouTube. We'll get that live stream going as soon as humanly possible. Please throw me a bone here. I'm trying. Get this thing fixed. And we'll just continue to roll that out, add to it. I would think, let me just show you this again. I know I've done this before. Let me just show you one of the, I don't know if this is the final background concept. I love it. It's not a question of liking it, just to be fair. It is more about being able to match up what's behind me so that it doesn't overwhelm me, which is not something I really thought about. Why would I? I never had to build a home studio. But that's one logo that we're working on. All right, BT Unleashed, and that would be behind me the entire wall. So that would be one. That's a little bit of a different version, a little bit of a different color scheme. I really like these. I know a lot of you like these next ones coming up here. Let's see. And they definitely pop, and they're definitely in play, and I'd have to kind of maybe tweak one or two things. This is one, right? Many of you have seen that. I put that out there a lot. This is one where it's a little bit of a different capture there, kind of like a night show, whatever. Some neon there. This is the brick wall, not coming out of the wall necessarily, not exploding like one of those first concepts I gave you. And this is more, all right, we've got a little more pop there, and then I'd have those bookshelves kind of pressed off to the side there. So anyway, we're doing that. I've got a phone call with somebody today that I hopefully will wind up producing the show, who I've worked with in the past. And then once we get that, then we could start to integrate guests. And then obviously we could start to integrate calls, and all these things are coming. I just wanted to thank you guys again for the support, and let's just go brick by brick by brick by brick, day by day, content segment by segment. And that's what we're off to. So go and subscribe. All right. The more you guys subscribe, the more I think we're at about 13,000 subs right now, which is it's petered out a little bit because of the YouTube issue, but we were just flying out of the chute. Now the goal is, once we get that back up, and even now, just keep building that up, because as you know, and as I've learned, the algorithm and what puts the content out there, and the more that this stuff gets distributed, the more stuff that I can really do in terms of bells and whistles for the show. So that is, it's not an idea. It's not a concept. BT Unleashed, to make this phenomenal, is a mission. That is my stated mission. So the more support that I have behind the scenes, which is coming, the more support I have from you guys, we're just going to keep picking up speed here. And I think we're already off to a pretty good start. So have an awesome rest of your day. By the way, now I wouldn't be able to do this on YouTube yet, but if something happens, a Bellinger signing, the Mets, a Tucker or something, that is the other beautiful thing about this. Now, if I'm sitting in the stands at one of my kids or coaching my daughter in basketball, I'm going to have to come home and do it. But when something breaks, a big Knick game, something of significance, Giants actually hire somebody, Jets make a move, whatever, I'm popping on. We're going live, and that's how we're rolling. So I appreciate you guys. You definitely know that. Have an awesome, awesome rest of your Wednesday. Catch you tomorrow with 10, unless something breaks at some point today. Bye-bye.